Educate our listeners on what your observations were and experiences were at Elmhurst Hospital, the epicenter of the COVID crisis.
I live in Florida, so when this first started about a year ago, we were waiting for, the wave to come. All eyes were on New York. But I was working in the emergency room at a local hospital. I was actually out in the tents, kind of waiting for people. A few stragglers. Other than that, our hospital was pretty empty, as were many across the United States, but not New York. So, we're watching New York. All eyes were on them. We didn't have anything to do. So I had an opportunity to travel to New York, and I took it. When you go to a war zone, you get to work, right? I mean, we didn't. They told me to pack my bags, be on a plane in 2 days. So I was. Plane landed in New York, sat around 3 days. There was nurses. I'm not talking like a few nurses, like hundreds of nurses that were sitting around for up to 18, 20 days. And this is during the height of the pandemic. So that was my first red flag.
What were they telling you, Erin? I mean, I'm sure you're someone who just doesn't, sit there and you want to get involved, as do those hundreds of other nurses who are there to help. You're trained professionals to help. So what were they telling you when you say, hey, wait, we're here? What their problem? Why aren't we being utilized? What would they tell you?
Well, it was the hospitals essentially that were just not accepting nurses. So I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. They had me get here so fast. Like I kissed my kids. Like I was like, kids, I'm leaving. Like I'll be, it's a scary situation. What if it is what they say it is and I don't come home? That's a risk. This may be the last time I give my kids a kiss and a hug. I didn't know. So getting there, I was like, are they really just like that unorganized? I'm like, why don't we just drive over there and at least we can help do CNA work or mop the floors or whatever.
Right. Because they were claiming at the time they were so understaffed and the staff was being just overworked and there was a huge problem.
Maybe in the very, very early days, like the first couple days. But I mean, there was no reason for this. I mean, these nurses, I got there at the beginning of April. These nurses were sitting around for 20, like they were there. They didn't utilize them. Why? So that was my first red flag. Okay. We're getting paid a lot of money. We were getting paid $10,000 a week as nurses. Wow. Now I know that it was essentially kind of hush money. My first day at Elmhurst, and I'm not new. I've been a nurse for almost 10 years. I get there and it's well staffed. I never had more than 2 to 3 patients. Normal for ICU, right? It was lack of compassion for patients. The hospital was liability free, so it became a free for all. People were doing what they wanted. Patients were all on ventilators for the majority, and no one was entering their rooms. Very, very seldom. So now you have a patient on a ventilator, essentially a medically induced coma. No families allowed in the hospitals. The hospitals are liability free. All the healthcare professionals are liability free, and they took advantage of it. Just imagine you were in a room on a ventilator, can't speak for yourself. They put extension on the IV tubing. So they pulled the IV poles out of their rooms. So they were in the hallway with the doors closed so we could just change out the medications and never assessing. I don't think I saw one doctor or even very few nurses use a stethoscope at all. Wow. Nobody was being assessed. There was some patients that had feces all the way up their backs, probably 2 weeks. They weren't even looked at. They were letting these patients kind of just die. And everybody was okay with this.
So you, I'm sure, went to your supervisor. And what did the supervisor say?
This was my first, I did go to them, but my first day, I saw this happening, and
Okay.
I was just like speechless.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this is why these patients are dying, because nobody's even trying to like save them. One, they're like afraid of them.
Yeah.
And two, like it just nobody cared. So my first day, I got back to the hotel. We worked 12-hour shifts, and I broke down, like hands and knees on the floor, just bawling.
Mm-hmm.
I have never in my life saw such negligence ever. Um, Even in third world countries, I worked in hospitals over there as well. So I got on a Zoom call with like a lot of my like most trusted friends, a lot of nurse friends that I had, and I just spilled it. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this isn't okay. This is what's happening. Like people just don't care.
Now,
Nurse
what was their
practitioner,
reaction to you when you said this? Because they were obviously
shocked.
still working. They were shocked
Yeah.
as well. And,
Yeah.
and
I
they were in
mean,
other locations in the United States, these friends you called? Not in New York? Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Tears.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
lots of tears. I mean, it's tragic. But one of my friends, she's a nurse practitioner, went live on Facebook, and she ended up becoming like, it went viral, really viral. Daily News shared it, and she was essentially my proxy. And death threats started coming at her. So I'm continuing to work, and she's, saying, hey, my friend's in New York, this is what's happening, this is what she's telling me, keeping me private. And so she started getting a lot of death threats. People were saying that she was lying, and I'm like, and by this time it's like a weekend, and I'm like, okay, no one's going to believe me. I've tried to go up the administration. I've tried to talk to my nurse leads, and the response that I get when I'm trying to advocate for my patients is hush, or you're going home. I have text messages, guys, be good or you're going to go home. I still have these from my team leads. So I'm like, no one's listening. I contacted an attorney.
Did you ever talk to a doc, Erin, about this? And what did the doc say?
Well, there was very few. I recorded this, some of my conversations with doctors. That's in my expose.
Right.
They all knew. There was one resident who was studying essentially still, that was on my side, but he couldn't say anything either.
No. And the attending staff were just okay with this?
They were everyone was okay with it. Because that's protocol. The problem lies with order followers.
Yeah.
And that is this is history repeating itself. Look at Germany. This is exactly what happened. It was the order followers and just people that just kind of went along with it and just said it is what it is and just let it happen. All of us nurses definitely agreed that it was absolute negligence, malpractice, mismanagement. I mean, it was the perfect storm in at the expense of patient lives. We all agreed, all of us. We all knew. The conversations that we had to and from on the bus, we were all in a alliance that it was really bad. But yes, that's why I said the hush money, getting paid $10,000 a week is too risky for some people to lose. Mm-hmm. Some of these doctors, were getting up to $50,000 a week to be there. So that's why I call it hush money. Because they didn't want to.
Docs are getting $50,000 a week to be there?
Some, yes.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. So who wants to lose that paycheck? For me, I don't care how much money you wanna kind of shove at me. Like it's not worth a patient's life. No. It's not worth thousands of lives, and it's not worth me not being able to put my head on my pillow at night and sleep, knowing that I was silent about.
Oh yeah,
this
no, right, no, yeah.
Because each of these people, they had lives. They have family members that loved them, that were banned from being in the hospital and knowing what was going on. It's criminal. It is. Now that we're a year we're now at a year since this nightmare. It's trickling out. Now Cuomo, the governor of New York, is under serious investigation. A lot of it is stemming from the nursing homes, but he also is responsible for what happened in these hospitals because of his executive orders.